When a corrupt judge tries to humiliate Donald Trump during a courthouse showdown, he believes his power is absolute. But when Trump calmly exposes the truth, everything changes in an instant, leaving the entire courtroom in complete shock. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. The federal courthouse in Manhattan was buzzing with anticipation that morning. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be just another day in court. Judge Raymond Sullivan entered the courtroom with an unmistakable scowl, his black robe flowing behind him like a shadow. "I want absolute silence," he barked, glaring at the packed gallery. His clerk flinched visibly as he slammed his leather portfolio onto the bench. "And someone fix that thermostat. It's like a sauna in here." The bailiff scrambled to adjust the temperature while Sullivan shuffled through his papers with visible irritation. His reputation preceded him. A judge known for harsh rulings and, particularly in recent years, increasingly hostile behavior toward conservative defendants. A court officer approached cautiously. "Your Honor, former President Trump has arrived for today's hearing." Sullivan's expression darkened instantly. "Well, isn't that special?" he muttered, not bothering to hide his contempt. "Make sure he understands the rules of my courtroom. His title means nothing here." The atmosphere shifted dramatically when Donald Trump entered. Unlike the theatrical entrance many expected, Trump walked in with quiet dignity. He nodded respectfully to the court staff and took his seat beside his attorney, his composure unwavering despite the tension. Judge Sullivan watched him like a predator sizing up prey, his fingers drumming impatiently against the bench. The gallery fell silent, sensing the brewing storm. Sullivan leaned forward, microphone amplifying his voice. "Let's establish something immediately, Mr. Trump. In this courtroom, I alone determine what happened. Your celebrity status, your wealth, your former title, none of it matters here. Is that perfectly clear?" Trump met the judge's gaze steadily. "Completely clear, Your Honor. I'm here only as a witness to the facts." "Facts?" Sullivan scoffed, raising an eyebrow. "We'll see about that." He turned to the prosecution table, barely concealing his smirk. "Let's proceed without further delay." From the moment the prosecutor began her opening statement, Sullivan's bias was impossible to ignore. Each time Trump's attorney tried to object, Sullivan shut him down with growing hostility. "Overruled," he snapped repeatedly, not even bothering to consider the legal merits. "Move on." His gavel came down with such force that the court reporter jumped each time. Several jurors exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly noticing the judge's unusual behavior. When it was Trump's turn to testify, Sullivan's conduct became even more unprofessional. "Stand up straight when addressing this court," he ordered, though Trump's posture was already impeccable. "And speak clearly. I won't tolerate any political grandstanding in my courtroom." Trump remained composed. "Your Honor, I can confirm that all financial transactions regarding the Freedom Foundation were fully documented and transparent." Sullivan rolled his eyes dramatically. "Oh, here we go. Another billionaire trying to hide behind charities." The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Even the prosecutor looked uneasy at how blatantly the judge was broadcasting his bias. But Sullivan wasn't finished. "Let me tell you something about wealth and influence, Mr. Trump," he continued, leaning forward with narrowed eyes. "In my experience, men like you believe the rules don't apply to them. Your presence here today only confirms my suspicions about this case." A low murmur ran through the courtroom. The judge wasn't even pretending to be impartial anymore. Trump remained remarkably calm. His composure only seemed to irritate Sullivan further. The judge's hands trembled slightly as he shuffled through his papers, his eyes repeatedly darting toward a specific folder on his desk. That's when Trump delivered the first unexpected blow. "Your Honor," he began steadily, "I have here documented evidence of all transactions, including the April meetings that established the timeline of events." Sullivan nearly jumped from his seat. "Those records are inadmissible," he practically shouted, though no objection had been raised. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Several jurors exchanged uncertain glances. Trump's attorney stood cautiously. "Your Honor, on what grounds are you?" "Don't question my rulings." Sullivan's face flushed deep red. "One more word, and I'll hold you in contempt." The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in her seat. This wasn't judicial discretion anymore. This was personal animosity playing out in real time. Trump spoke up, his voice firm yet respectful. "Your Honor, these documents were properly submitted during discovery last month." Sullivan let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, were they?" And I suppose your White House connections had nothing to do with that then. Narrowing his eyes, he sneered. Let me tell you something about your kind, Mr. Trump. You think you can waltz into my courtroom with your political influence and— Objection, Your Honor. Trump's attorney had finally found his courage. But before he could finish, Sullivan slammed his gavel down so hard that several people jumped. Sit down, he bellowed. The courtroom fell deathly silent. For the first time, it was painfully clear Judge Sullivan had completely lost control. Not of his courtroom, but of himself. His rage had betrayed him. And Donald Trump, remaining perfectly composed, had just exposed it. If you're enjoying this incredible story of justice, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, what happens next will leave you speechless. I will not tolerate this kind of disrespect in my courtroom. Sullivan roared, his face now deep crimson. This is completely inappropriate. Trump remained unfazed, his expression carefully neutral. Your Honor, perhaps we should discuss the specifics of the Liberty Trust Foundation meetings from March 3rd. The shift in Sullivan's demeanor was instant and striking. The rage in his face flickered, replaced by something else entirely. Fear. His hands, still gripping the gavel, froze midair. He stared at Trump as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Those meetings aren't relevant to these proceedings, he stammered, his voice suddenly uncertain. But his eyes kept darting to that particular folder on his bench, one that had mysteriously appeared that very morning. Not relevant? Trump asked quietly, leaning forward slightly. That's interesting, Your Honor, considering those meetings directly relate to the charitable contributions under discussion. Sullivan slammed both hands on his bench, the sound echoing through the stunned courtroom. One more word about those meetings, and I'll have you removed immediately. The entire courtroom watched in disbelief as the judge's composure continued to crumble before their eyes. His hands visibly shook as he shuffled papers, desperately trying to regain control. In fact, he continued, voice taking on a frantic edge. I'm holding you in contempt right now. You think your status protects you? You're nothing but a murmur swept through the gallery. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably, looking increasingly troubled. Court officers exchanged uneasy glances. Trump never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Your Honor, he said evenly, my status has nothing to do with this. But since you mentioned protection, he reached calmly into his briefcase. Perhaps we should discuss the Justice Foundation's protection payments. Sullivan's face transformed from red to ghostly white in an instant. His jaw clenched tightly, breathing suddenly shallow. How dare you? His voice cracked. I mean, what payments? There were no guards. Remove this man from my courtroom. The court officers didn't move. Everyone could see what was happening now. Trump calmly removed a stack of documents from his briefcase. Actually, Your Honor, I have some rather interesting bank records here. He held them up, allowing the room to see them clearly. Would you care to explain the monthly deposits from offshore accounts that coincidentally align with your rulings against conservative defendants? Silence. Sullivan's outburst was primal, a last, desperate attempt to maintain control. You have no right. No authority. I am the law here. Me. Not some billionaire who thinks he. Trump raised another document. Your signature on these authorization forms suggests otherwise, Your Honor. Sullivan lunged forward, pointing a trembling finger. You planted those. This is a setup, a right-wing conspiracy to. He caught himself abruptly. But it was too late. The courtroom gasped audibly. Conspiracy, Trump repeated softly. Interesting choice of words, Your Honor. Especially given your private meetings with certain activist organizations. Sullivan was practically foaming at the mouth now. I will not be interrogated in my own court. His voice cracked with panic. You think you can come in here with your smug face and your evidence. He spat the last word like poison. Trump, ever composed, turned to another page. Evidence, he echoed. That shows a disturbing pattern. He glanced toward the jury. Like the Johnson case last month, where a small business owner lost everything because you wouldn't allow evidence of his charitable work to be presented. Just like today. Sullivan let out a hysterical laugh. The Johnson case? That right-wing fraud deserved what he got. They all do. These people think they can hide behind their so-called patriotism and family values while. The room fell into stunned silence. Sullivan's own words hung in the air like a confession. Trump barely blinked. Or, he continued, pulling out another document, perhaps we should discuss the Wilson hearing, where where you mysteriously sealed all records just hours after meeting with representatives from the Global Justice Initiative. Sullivan's face twitched violently. His lips parted, but no words emerged. How do you know about? He stopped abruptly, realizing his mistake. Trump tilted his head slightly. Know about what, Your Honor? The meeting or the $300,000 deposited in your Cayman account the following day? If you believe in justice and accountability, smash that like button and leave a comment below. This story is about to take an incredible turn. Sullivan's entire body went rigid. The gavel slipped from his grasp, clattering loudly against the bench. The prosecutor stood up abruptly, finally understanding what she was witnessing. The jury members exchanged glances, their minds already made up. Sullivan had lost more than his temper. He had lost everything. The gallery erupted in murmurs, the sound swelling like a rising tide. Sullivan slammed his gavel repeatedly, each strike more desperate than the last. Order! Order! I will have order! His voice cracked with panic. This is all fabricated. A right-wing plot too. Like the Anderson case? Like Mrs. Anderson's case? Trump pressed on, his tone steady. A grandmother who lost her retirement savings because you wouldn't allow her to explain where the money came from. Interesting how the company that sued her donated to your re-election campaign just weeks before. Shut up! Sullivan screamed, his composure completely shattered. You have no right. No authority. I am the law here. Me? No, Your Honor. Trump's calm voice cut through the chaos. You're not the law. You're supposed to serve it. Like when you took your oath of office. The same day you opened that account in the Bahamas. Sullivan shot up from his seat, his robes disheveled, pointing wildly at Trump. Guards! Arrest this man for contempt. Seize those documents, all of them. Now! What are you waiting for? I gave you an order. The court officers hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. Something fundamental had changed in the room. Before they do that, Your Honor, Trump continued, unbothered, perhaps we should discuss why you're so eager to seize these particular documents. I don't have to explain myself to you. Sullivan snarled, pacing frantically behind the bench. I am a federal judge. My decisions are final. My authority is absolute. Trump leaned back slightly, almost amused. Absolute authority, Your Honor, seems to be a recurring theme with you. Like in the Wims case, where you ordered all evidence of your private meeting sealed. Sullivan froze mid-stride. How did you? He stopped, lips tightening. Those records were supposed to be. He caught himself again. But the damage was done. Trump tilted his head. Supposed to be what, Your Honor? Destroyed? Like the records from the Justice Initiative meetings. Enough! Sullivan roared, his face contorted with fury. You self-righteous. You think you can come into my courtroom and expose. His breath hitched. He had said too much. Expose what exactly? Trump pressed. The systematic abuse of judicial power? The coordinated targeting of conservative defendants? Or perhaps the payments you've been receiving too? I said silence. Sullivan completely lost control. He grabbed his gavel and hurled it across the courtroom, narrowly missing his own clerk. You want to talk about abuse of power? Sullivan shouted, practically foaming at the mouth. I'll show you abuse of power. Officers, I want this man in handcuffs now, and anyone who refuses my order will be joining him in jail. The courtroom had become eerily silent. Even Sullivan's heavy breathing seemed amplified in the thick tension. The officers still hadn't moved, their faces showing a clear conflict between duty and conscience. Sullivan leaned forward, his eyes dark with rage. Last chance, Mr. Trump, he snarled, his voice dripping with venom. Hand over those documents and submit to arrest, or I'll make sure you never set foot in another courtroom again. Trump merely flipped open another folder. That's an interesting threat, Your Honor. Almost identical to what you told Robert Jenkins before dismissing his discrimination case right after you met with CEO Michael Dawson. Sullivan's face went ghostly pale. What? How did you, Dawson? Trump continued, unfazed. Who deposited $2 million into your offshore account? The same Dawson who hosted that private meeting last month, where 9 other judges were present, all of whom mysteriously ruled in his favor the following week. Sullivan's hands curled into fists. You have no right, he shrieked, spittle flying from his mouth. Those records are privileged. Those conversations were private. Trump's tone turned sharp. Private, like the recordings from your chambers? Sullivan staggered backward. What recordings? The courtroom collectively held its breath. Trump glanced toward the clerk's desk. The ones where you explicitly told your clerk to lose evidence that would have exonerated 3 conservative defendants last year. A sharp gasp came from the side of the room. The clerk, still seated at her desk, burst into tears. "He made me do it," she sobbed. "He said he'd destroy my career if I didn't." "Silence," Sullivan thundered, but his authority was in shambles. His face was beet red, veins bulging at his temples, his entire body trembling. "None of this is admissible. You can't prove." "Actually," Trump interrupted smoothly, "everything was obtained legally." He flipped open another page. "Your own security cameras caught the late-night document shredding. Your own phone recorded the threats. Your signature authorized the transfers." Sullivan lunged forward, reaching desperately across his bench. "Give me those files. I order you to." "Order denied." The new voice came from the back of the courtroom. Every head turned. A team of FBI agents strode down the center aisle, their badges gleaming under the bright courtroom lights. The lead agent's voice rang out, clear and unshakable. "This court is now under federal investigation." He locked eyes with Sullivan. "Judge Raymond Sullivan, stay where you are." Sullivan's breath hitched. "You can't do this," he shrieked, but no one was listening anymore. The reign of Judge Sullivan was over. "I have immunity," Sullivan shouted, backing away from his bench. "I have connections. Do you know who I am?" The lead FBI agent stepped forward, completely unfazed. "Oh, we know exactly who you are, Your Honor," he replied. "Qua, including your recent meetings with the Global Justice Initiative, your offshore accounts, and your coordinated efforts to target conservative defendants." Sullivan's eyes darted wildly around the courtroom, searching for an escape route. "This is all a setup. A right-wing plot too." "A plot?" Trump interjected quietly. "The only plot here was your systematic abuse of power, Your Honor. Every biased ruling, every backroom deal, every attempt to silence the truth. It all ends today." Sullivan pointed a trembling finger at Trump. "You planned this. You and your conservative conspirators set me up." Trump shook his head. "No, Your Honor. You set yourself up. We simply gave you enough rope to hang yourself, with your own words and actions. Today confirmed everything we already knew." FBI agents approached the bench, but Sullivan wasn't done fighting. "I am a federal judge. You can't arrest me." His voice cracked as he struggled against the inevitable. "I am the law. I am the law." The agents had to physically restrain him as he made a desperate lunge toward his chambers. "You don't understand," he screamed. "They made me do it. The Foundation, they have dirt on everyone. If I talk now." The lead FBI agent raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting. Tell us more about this foundation, Your Honor." Sullivan's mouth snapped shut for the first time. His mind caught up with his panic. His face twisted into a sneer, his hands still trembling. "I want my lawyer. And when this is over, you'll all pay for this humiliation." Trump stepped forward, unperturbed. "Speaking of payment," he pulled another document from his folder. "Perhaps you'd like to explain these transfer records." Sullivan's breathing hitched. Trump held the paper up for the court to see. 12 judges, all receiving similar payments on the same days you did. All ruling against conservative defendants in coordinated cases. The gallery erupted in shocked whispers. This wasn't just about one corrupt judge, it was an entire network. Trump's voice carried through the stunned courtroom. The evidence suggests that this was a systematic effort to use the judicial system as a political weapon. He turned back to Sullivan, his gaze unwavering. "But justice isn't meant to be a weapon, Your Honor. It's meant to be a shield, protecting all Americans equally." Sullivan stopped struggling. The fight had drained from his face. Behind him, court officers sealed his chambers for investigation. His clerk was already in tears, confessing everything. "He made me do it," she sobbed as they questioned her. "He said he'd ruin my career if I didn't." Sullivan's final walk of shame out of his own courtroom was more than just an arrest. It was a symbol. Justice had finally caught up with him. But as the agents led him away in handcuffs, he turned one last time to face Trump. His voice was cold, bitter, hollow. "You think this changes anything? There will always be others like me. You can't stop us all." Trump nodded slightly. "You're right about one thing. There will always be those who abuse power." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But there will also always be those who stand up against them. That's what makes our justice system work. Not the corruption you represent, but the courage of those who fight against it." The aftermath was swift and far-reaching. Sullivan's arrest triggered a wave of investigations across multiple jurisdictions. The network of corrupt judges began to crumble as more evidence surfaced and witnesses came forward. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when the American people saw firsthand that no one, not even those entrusted with upholding the law, was above it. If you believe in standing up for truth and accountability, make sure to like this video and subscribe Perfect Stories channel for more powerful stories. God bless you, and God bless America.